Hello, everybody. I'm David Schuster in Lebanon, Connecticut. Welcome to a special edition of Quick Hits News. We are broadcasting to you from the live HAPS app, HAPS TV. We'll welcome your questions on Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, all the various social media channels. We've got a lot to cover over the next half an hour. There is some intriguing data that's been coming out over the past couple of days that shows just how divided the United States is. And what we're going to do is we're going to crunch down some of this data and give you 5 reasons based on the data that Joe Biden will win next Tuesday night, or a couple days thereafter, and we'll give you 5 reasons based on the data why Donald Trump will win. We'll also tie in some historical precedent, and to give you a sample of what the data is showing, a lot of people, of course, are divided in how they get their news. There was a poll that just came out that found people who watch Fox News and Republican talk radio feel that by 90% to 9, the U.S. has controlled the outbreak as much as it could. And that might make sense. Trump supporters believe that he's done everything possible to control it. People who watch MSNBC, CNN, and NPR say by 3% to 97%, President Trump has not controlled it as much as it could. 97%. That's how divided we are simply on the issue of COVID-19. A couple of interesting tidbits that have come out in terms of battleground polls. There is a poll that's come out tonight that suggests Donald Trump is leading in the state of Michigan, although the sample size of this poll was not, in my view, statistically significant. In any case, it lowered the margin for the Real Clear Politics average in terms of giving Joe Biden, instead of an 8-point lead in Michigan, the average is now just over 6. One of the reasons that so much of this, of course, is important is if you look at some of the margins that were in play 4 years ago in the 2016 race. And I just want to put this up just so you can take a look. I'm going to put on my glasses just so you can see again. The key here are the battleground states, although supposedly, if for example, if Hillary Clinton won Maine, if Joe Biden's expected to win Maine and it's, 2.36%, that's going to be awfully close. But take a look at Minnesota. Hillary Clinton won in 2016 by 1.5. Michigan was a difference of 0.23%. Pennsylvania, 0.72. Wisconsin, 0.77. And yet, if you look back at the margins in the final polls back in 2016, Hillary Clinton was up in Michigan by 9 points or 8 points. She was up in Wisconsin by 5 or 6 points. She was up in Pennsylvania by a couple of points. So again, the theory on the Republican side is that these polls are a lot sort of closer, and they're expecting margins much more like the final results we had in 2016 than the polls are suggesting right now. One other thing I want to get to, and this will help you sort of underscore sort of where Americans are. On election night, you're going to hear a lot of newscasters talk about exit polling. What are the most important issues according to Americans? Well, we've already got some of that data. So I'm going to put some of it up for you. And I'm not sure this is going to look very good, but well, you know what? I'm just going to tell you. I don't need to show you the data on this. Let's see. Yeah, I'm just going to show it to you. And let's put Biden and Mr. Trump back on the screen. So when asked what are the most important issues in deciding how you're going to vote on November 3rd, and this was a poll that came out just a couple of days ago, the economy ranked number 1. 30% of people said the economy was most important. 17% said the coronavirus was most important. The reason that is significant is because Republicans, in terms of just brand ID, they have a plus 13 polling average on handling of the economy over Democrats, whereas Democrats have a plus 17 average in terms of handling the coronavirus. So if somebody thinks that coronavirus is most important, they're more likely to choose Joe Biden. If they think the economy is more important, they're more likely to choose Donald Trump. Healthcare was 3rd in terms of most important, 13%. That is an issue that would favor Democrats, according to the pollsters, by plus 13. Race relations was 4th most important. Democrats have a 19-point edge on race relations. And crime and violence, which Donald Trump has been talking a lot about at some of his rallies to try to drive up suburban women's support for him and against Joe Biden, that came in at 5th, with 6% saying that was most important. Again, Republicans have a 12-point advantage on crime and violence. So some interesting stuff. But let's get right to it. And what I first want to do, if I can manage this, is I'm going to put up we had a little fun with this last night, and we're going to get to it again a little bit. I'm going to put up the electoral map from 2016. And let's close out of Mr. Biden, Mr. Trump. Okay, this is the electoral map, 306 to 232 for Hillary Clinton. Again, if you're playing sort of by, and again, we're not a national election. Everybody knows, of course, at least in the United States, we're an electoral college election. Each state has a certain number of electoral college votes. You need 270 to win. This was the map 4 years ago. It is expected that Biden At least his campaign is counting on picking up at least 2 of the 4 Midwestern states that he lost 4 years ago, in terms of Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. If he picks up Wisconsin and Michigan, he will need a pickup of 1 other state to get to 270. It could be North Carolina. It could be Arizona, 2 states where the polls suggest that he's ahead. If he picks up, say, Michigan and Ohio, Michigan and Pennsylvania, then he gets to 270. So that's essentially where, when people talk about the battleground states, those are the states I think people are watching the most. There's a poll that suggests that Florida is dead even. Obviously, if Joe Biden can flip that, that certainly helps him in the map. There's a suggestion that Texas is even. I'm not sure I buy that. But again, that's another thing that helps Joe Biden widen the map. So when you hear people talk about, oh, well, Joe Biden has an 85% chance of winning and Donald Trump only has 15%. It's because of these sort of calculations that usually when you're dealing with this sort of map in terms of what the polling is suggesting, the person who's ahead in most of the states usually wins most of those states. And therefore, that's why a lot of the pollsters suggest that Joe Biden's got the edge. Now, let's get right to it. Let's go right to the 5 reasons that Joe Biden is going to win. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Joe Biden's face up here. Let's take down the map. Okay, 5 reasons Joe Biden is going to win. And again, this is based on the data. And the reason is because, well, first of all, number 5, the polling has consistently favored Joe Biden. He had a 5.9% edge over Donald Trump nationally back in April. It went up to 9.8% in June, 6.6% in September, 7.9% October. It's now 7.6%. So he has maintained a consistent lead over Donald Trump nationally. And the reason that's important is because if you go back to 2016, Hillary Clinton, her lead has started to crater with about a week and a half left. So at this point, just 4 or 5 days before the election, Hillary Clinton was down to about a 4% average. So that's reason number 5. Now I'm going to put up a notifier here so people know what we're talking about. And by the way, we're going to welcome your comments on all of our social media challenges. Okay, all of our social media channels, I should say. Okay, here's reason number 4. And let's put up this screen. I'm going to put up a shot to illustrate this. You may not be able to see this very well, but I think it's interesting. The reason number 4 that Joe Biden is going to win is if you look at, since 1984, every election where the right direction, wrong track has been worse than 18%, the White House flips control. So when you look at the right direction, wrong track, I'm going to pull it up because I'm not even sure I can see it on mine. Well, look, if you look at, so for example, in 2008, wrong track. And that was the year that George W. Bush was outgoing as president. Barack Obama won, went from a Republican White House to a Democratic White House. The right direction was 11%. The wrong track was 76%. In 1992, went from George H.W. Bush to Bill Clinton. George H.W. Bush lost his bid for re-election. The right direction, wrong track was a difference of 58%. 1980, Jimmy Carter lost after 1 term. It was a difference of 59%. So where does Donald Trump fall? Well, as you can see, he's at the United States is at 31%, feels that we're in the right direction. The wrong track is 62%. That is a difference of 31%. You have to go all the way back, though, down to 1988. Again, when anything above 18%, and this is all the way back to 1984, when the right track, wrong direction is at minus 18%, the White House always flips control all the way back to 1984. So that is my reason number 4. Now let's take a look at the reason number 3. If you look at, say, and let's get rid of this. Reason number 3 has to do with recessions. If there's a recession within 2 years of an election, every president that has had a recession within 2 years of an election has lost re-election. So Donald Trump, which has had a recession over the past, certainly the past year, he's in line with George H.W. Bush 41, who had a recession. He lost in 1992. Jimmy Carter, who faced a recession within 2 years of his 1980 election, he lost. Gerald Ford, president, of course, who took over when Richard Nixon resigned. Gerald Ford faced a recession heading into the 1976 election. He lost. Herbert Hoover in 1932. You have to go all the way back to Calvin Coolidge in 1924, 96 years ago, to find a president who was running for re-election, who had a recession, who managed to stay in office. 96 years, that's how long it's been. Now, you can argue, well, this is a recession unlike anything else, because obviously we're talking about something that was caused by the pandemic, but nonetheless, a recession is a recession. Let's go to number 2. And this is an interesting one. Screenshot number 16. So a lot of people have talked about what's the mother's milk of politics, right? And the mother's milk of politics is money. It helps you buy ads. It helps you organize. It helps you get your message across. So if you look at the amount of money that cash on hand as of just about 2 weeks ago between Trump and the Republican National Committee and Joe Biden, the Democratic National Committee, you're talking a difference of some 60-some percent. The Democrats, $331 million, Donald Trump, $223 million. And that's why we've seen in state after state, Joe Biden is outspending Donald Trump. He's got more ads up. He's got more social media posts up. He's got, some say, a better organization in terms of something that he's been able to pay for. He's got more money to spend, and that makes a big difference. So that's reason number two why I suggest that Joe Biden is going to win on next week. Now, here's the number one reason why I think Joe Biden is going to win. And again, this has nothing to do with, well, it has something to do with some of the data. And it has everything to do with when you compare Joe Biden to Hillary Clinton. If you look at the favorable, unfavorable, and just a few days before the election in 2016, Hillary Clinton had a 43% favorable rating. Her unfavorable was 53. She was down 10. Joe Biden's favorable, 50%. His unfavorable is 44. He's got a +6. So when people talk about the 2016 election, not only was an election where people wanted an outsider like Donald Trump, but there were a significant number of people who came to the polls who voted against Hillary Clinton. That dynamic is not as strong now. There aren't as many voters out there, according to the data, who are coming out because they strongly oppose Joe Biden and want to vote against him. Now, the Trump campaign in the final days has been trying to make this a choice election as opposed to a referendum on President Trump. And we're going to run some ads from both campaigns to sort of get to their strategy. But there you have the 5 reasons why I think Joe Biden wins next week or perhaps a few days afterwards. Again, his polling has been consistent. Every election where there's been an incumbent with every election where the right track, wrong track has been more than minus 18%, the White House control flips. Whenever there's been a recession within 2 years of an election, an incumbent president loses all the way back from 96 years. Joe Biden has been outspending and has more cash on hand than Donald Trump. And finally, he doesn't have the high unfavorability that Hillary Clinton had 2016. Okay, those are the 5 reasons why I think Joe Biden wins. Now, let's get to the 5 reasons why Donald Trump wins. By the way, I love the fact that people are already, we got 66 live chats. And by the way, I'll go to some of your questions here. The world is on fire. Thank you. They did in Illinois. I was going to say I'm glad I'm not American, but we're not doing too hot over here either. That is Dr. Gary. Thank you. All that money Biden took from Wall Street, says test support Larry. Imagine if all that money was with me while I was in Vegas. Okay, says double whatever. Let's see. Biden is bought by China. Well, that's a view that some people have. The world is on fire. Let's go. Let it burn. Humans don't deserve to carry on. Okay, a lot of interesting chats so far. 73 so far. People are fired up. Okay, here are the 5 reasons why I think Donald Trump wins. Let me put the identifier up here, and let's change photos. Let's get rid of Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton. Let's put a nice picture up here of President Trump. And let's lose Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. Well, people are enjoying this. By the way, you can always, for my fellow journalists out there, you should sign up to HAPS. It's pretty easy. I'm able to do all this sort of directing and putting up elements myself. It's a little bit raw, but we're getting there, and we're having a lot of fun. So join us on HAPS, and you can also be part of the conversation through all of our social media channels. Okay. Screenshot number 18. Reason number 5 why Donald Trump wins. I hope I'm not making anybody too nervous or anxious out there. Okay, reason why Donald Trump wins. Since 1980, incumbents have won 17 of 21 re-elections. That's right. You can see it right there, incumbents. I'm getting my hard copy so that you can see it yourself. I think I can make that out. Anyway, 1992. Hold on one sec. Okay, anyway, you can see 17 out of 21 incumbents. You can, there are the dates in particular if you want. When a president has lost, an incumbent has lost, you're talking about 1980, you're talking about 1976 with Gerald Ford. So, George H.W. Bush, 19. So the general rule of thumb is that incumbents, usually because of all the powers of the president, say they win 17 out of 21 times. If Donald Trump were to lose, he would be in a minority. That's number 5. Maybe not such a strong reason, but okay. That's why it's number 5 and not number 1. Let's now go to reason number 4, according to the data and according to historical precedent, why Donald Trump wins. Okay, a GOP registration. Now, for all of the talk about Joe Biden's money, the Republicans and the Democrats will acknowledge this. They have out-registered voters in some key states. They have registered more than 97,000 more voters in the state of Florida than the Democratic Party has. They are at plus 78,000 in Pennsylvania. The Republican Party is at plus 45,000 in North Carolina. Now, those are not numbers, even if you go back to the margins in 2016, it's not enough to essentially cover what the margin was in 2016. But if you're talking about bringing new voters to the polls, this year has essentially flipped the script. Usually it's Democrats who do a better job of registering new voters. This year it's been Republicans in some key states. The Democrats have not gone door to door to register new voters, in part because they're more afraid of COVID-19 than the Republicans. Republicans have been more aggressive. Will that make a difference? It could. And that's reason why number 4, when you talk about new voters, and new voters, by the way, are usually not counted in polls. Pollsters usually only want to know if you voted in the last election, then you're part of their survey. Well, there's a significant number of people who look like they're going to show up in Pennsylvania, Florida, and North Carolina who have never voted before. So is it possible that causes the polls to be wrong? It's possible. So that is reason number 4 why Donald Trump wins. Reason number 3. Let's put up a Trump-Biden photo here, because this is a comparison between the president and the Democratic challenger. Reason number 3, Donald Trump wins. Enthusiasm gap. Trump supporters like him more than Biden supporters like Biden. According to the polling, 71% of Trump supporters are voting because they favor Donald Trump. 29% say because they have a negative opinion about Joe Biden. In other words, they're going to the polls, they're voting because they favor Donald Trump. On the Democratic side, Joe Biden supporters say they're showing up because 36% are voting for him, whereas 63% say they're going to vote because they are against Donald Trump. So it's reversed. And the reason this is significant, because political scientists and election analysts will tell you that generally, not always, but generally, it's easier to count on your supporters going to the polls if they are voting for you as opposed to voting against somebody. It's just sort of voting against a candidate. It's just sort of act of nature, has to do with psychology, and political science will sort of, you can get into this. But again, that's why a lot of candidates and a lot of campaigns will tell you need your voters to go up and vote for something affirmative, something positive that they feel. Positivity usually attracts more people to the polls than voting against something. Now, we're in unprecedented times. 228,000 Americans have died as a result of COVID-19. We've got a president unlike anything we have seen in, perhaps ever. So maybe there's a valid fuel out there, and you'll have a lot of people who'll be voting against the president in a way that people have not voted against a candidate in the past. But again, you've got Republicans generally more happy, at least Trump supporters are more happy with their candidate than Biden supporters are with Joe Biden. So for that reason, that's another reason why, that's reason number 3, why I put Trump having a reason why Donald Trump will win next week. This is all, this is all open to your discussion and debate and questions, and we'll get to your questions in just a minute. Okay, here's, I think, perhaps one of the most significant, screen number 20, one of the most significant things that has come up, and it has to do with pollsters and how they operate and what they see and what they don't see. And actually, let's put, so you can see it a little bit better, let's put Donald Trump back on the screen. Okay, so this is a share of voters who say they are hesitant to share their true opinions when polled by phone. You can't see that very well. That is 11.7%. More than 1 out of 10 Republicans will not share their true feelings when they are polled by phone. 10.5% of independents, 5.4% of Democrats. This is the polling bias, the survey bias that some pollsters have talked about. And this gets to the theory that the numbers that a number of pollsters are getting, the results they're getting when they call people by phone, are inaccurate, because 1 out of 10 Republicans, just less than 1 out of 10, or just slightly above 1 out of 10 independents will not give their true feelings. And that there's this mood in the country where it's politically incorrect to say you're a Donald Trump supporter. And so the theory goes that there's this sort of silent majority, I don't know if it's majority, but a silent number of millions of voters who are going to pull the lever for Donald Trump, who are not willing to admit that, either when they go to show up for early voting, when they get a call from a pollster, or perhaps even if they get asked by an exit poller next Tuesday what they did. Is so that's a legitimate issue. Some pollsters are trying to take this into account, and I think if you look at pollsters that have surveyed more than 1,000 people, some of the more statistically significant polls, they account for this. However, it helps back up the argument that perhaps there is this large number of people who will show up for Donald Trump who don't want to admit that to the pollsters, and therefore the polls are wrong. Now, here's the other one, and this is number one reason, and this is the number that scares Democrats. I think, as it should. The number one reason why Donald Trump wins next week, number 22, and of course I didn't put it up, so that's okay. We don't need it. Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? This is a poll conducted by Gallup. 56% said yes. 56% say they are better off than they were 4 years ago. Now, Gallup and other pollsters have also asked, does Donald Trump deserve to be reelected? And 56% said no. But because you have a sizable portion, a majority of the population that feels in their own personal circumstances, they're happier, they're in a better situation now than they were 4 years ago, despite the pandemic, despite the economy, goes on and on and on. Therefore, that is a positive factor for Donald Trump. And it suggests that maybe, just maybe, when Rasmussen and others come out with this polling that says, oh, Donald Trump's above water, he's about 50% national in terms of approval rating, maybe that's the reason. A lot of people, though, when they cast their ballot, they do it not just because of how their own circumstances are and how they're feeling, but also what do they see in terms of the overall direction of the country, the right track, wrong track that we talked about ahead. So there you have it. The 5 reasons Donald Trump wins next week. Again, to review, since 1860, incumbents have won 17 of 21 re-elections. The GOP has won the registration battle in Pennsylvania, Florida, and North Carolina. There's more enthusiasm among Trump supporters for him than there are among Joe Biden supporters for Joe Biden. The Trump shy voters, the polling suggests that up to 11% of Trump voters are not going to acknowledge that to a pollster. And are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? 56% say yes. Interesting, right? All right, let's get to your discussions and debates, because I know people are on fire over this. 191 live chats. Biden won't do anything. Kamala will make the calls, his boot, whatever. This is that damn media doesn't support the president. America loves fascism. Okay. Mark Goldman, thanks for the award. Brett, Biden will practice taking glasses off and on. It's almost like it is their duty to challenge the powers that be. How can people support Trump? He has not made most of his promises. There's a lot of black Trump voters I know. This gets to something. So this gets to various sort of strategies. Biden. So Trump has this in the bag, says Church, whatever. Well, I'm not sure even Donald Trump has said that to his closest friends. If you talk, there's an article, fascinating article, a couple weeks ago. Actually, a week ago, in which Donald Trump called Piers Morgan. They used to be very close. Piers Morgan was on Celebrity Apprentice, longtime supporter. He has criticized Donald Trump during his presidency and has suggested here's the path for how Donald Trump can win this election. Donald Trump calls him, and Trump is fairly confident, saying, I think I'm going to win. I think the polls are wrong. And according to Piers Morgan, there was some level of certainty and confidence that the president has. But you also have a number of times on the campaign trail the past couple of days where Donald Trump has sort of talked about, I can't believe maybe I am going to lose to Joe Biden, and then what am I going to do? I'll have to leave someplace or leave the country. So anyway, I don't know if anybody has this in the bag. I just think that most people, and if you ask them honestly, away from the bias in terms of, this isn't going to be public, this isn't going to be part of a poll, but if you get people away from the microphones and off the record, I think most Democrats are happier in their position that they see Joe Biden tonight than Republicans are in terms of Donald Trump. But there are certainly some Republicans out there who just absolutely cannot believe anything the media says or the pollsters say, and therefore, as a result, they're confident the pollsters are wrong, just as they were 4 years ago, and that Donald Trump has this. Bernie, again, had better chance, according to Boot Something. Voter suppression and intimidation, which candidate supporters are doing more in terms of voter suppression and intimidation? You can make the argument that, Donald Trump and Trump campaign have encouraged people to go to the polls and monitor what's happening at the polls. Is that intimidation or suppression? Well, that's up to you. I want to get back to a little bit of strategy here, and I appreciate the 216 live chats that we go. And obviously, people, if you've got your own reasons why you think Donald Trump wins. By the way, I've never seen someone on Reddit be so serious, says Gigarki. I'm not on Reddit, but thanks for coming to us from Reddit. People on the left probably don't even know major peace deals are happening in the Middle East. Try watching unbiased news to see what Trump is getting done, says tech supporter Larry. Actually, I do think people know that there are peace deals that are getting done. We just had the peace deal between the United Arab Emirates and Israel and Dubai and Bahrain, and there's a peace deal with Sudan. Sudan was, to me, more significant because it was the first one that involved a country that had actually fought a war against Israel, whereas Bahrain has not fought a war. The UAE has not actually fought a war, but anyway, still, yeah, it's significant, I suppose, if you care about the Middle East. Unfortunately, for Donald Trump supporters, is that caring about foreign policy does not make the top 5 in terms of issues that voters care about. I want to get to strategy because one of the things that we've talked a lot about in covering this campaign is that when you have and we've talked about this in previous broadcasts, when you have an incumbent who's running for re-election, generally the election is a referendum on the incumbent, and so. What I mean by that, let me get my notes here just to make sure I get this correct. Okay, so by referendum, the Biden campaign has made this all about, look, Donald Trump has made the recovery worse by costing jobs. He's made the pandemic worse, costing lives. He's made racial division worse by inciting violence. He's made partisanship worse by dividing America. In most elections, when an incumbent is running, this is a referendum on the incumbent. There are some exceptions, going back, for example, to 2012, when Barack Obama, facing not great approval ratings, decided, okay, I'm going to make this a choice election, make it a choice between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney, who the Obama campaign felt they could make seem out of touch because of his wealth, because of his elevator for his cars, and on, and they were successful in that. Well, I want to play some ads that get to sort of the strategy of both Biden trying to make this a referendum and Donald Trump trying to make this a choice election. And first of all, let's play the clip from Donald Trump about Joe Biden. Again, when you try to make this a choice election, you're basically saying, look, you have a choice between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Here's some things you need to know about Joe Biden. If you choose Joe Biden, the Trump argument goes, you're picking socialism over capitalism. You're choosing opening up the economy instead of keeping it locked down because of COVID. You're choosing, if you pick Joe Biden, you're picking riots versus law and order. You're picking somebody who's weak instead of somebody who is strong. Now, all of that is encapsulated in a television ad that we've run before. I'm going to run it again. There we go. Let me pull it up. It's called President Trump Will Uphold the Law. Let me get rid of Trump photo. Again, this is the effort by the Trump campaign to make this a choice election rather than a referendum on him. Here's the ad. Okay, that's a clear referendum. That's a clear choice ad, right? You're trying to make the point that under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, America is going to be on fire. All the looting and violence is going to spread from urban cities up to the suburbs. That Joe Biden's going to make a mess of things. Donald Trump has used this effectively, I think, in terms of lowering the poll numbers in Pennsylvania by saying under Joe Biden, thousands of people are going to lose their jobs because Joe Biden does not support fracking. The numbers in Texas have gone a little bit in the president's favor ever since Joe Biden said at the debate he's going to phase out the oil industry. Again, you're trying to. If you're the president, you're trying to say, look at all the bad things that are going to happen to you if you pick Joe Biden. And oh, by the way, there's another ad that Donald Trump is running in which he tries to suggest that Joe Biden is lost, that Joe Biden is confused. Again, trying to make this about Joe Biden and not about the last 4 years. Here's the Trump campaign ad on Joe Biden being lost. Watch. Okay, so again, it's an ad to try to make this an election about a choice, suggesting that Joe Biden is weak compared to Donald Trump, who is strong, suggesting that, for example, that Joe Biden is lost, that he's confused, that he doesn't know what he's talking about, as opposed to, and by the way, there is some polling that has come out in terms of candidate character traits, and the pollsters were asked who's more mentally sharp. Donald Trump is ahead 50 to 46. Who stands up for your beliefs? For their beliefs, Donald Trump is ahead +8. So it's trying to reinforce some of the polling that already is out there among all sorts of people that suggests, Donald Trump, you at least clearly know that he believes what he believes in. With Joe Biden, according to the Trump campaign, you can't trust it. Now, the Biden campaign, of course, is flipping this and trying to say, no, let's make this an election let's make this a referendum. Let's make this all about the last 4 years. Do you want another 4 years of the chaos and the division and the pandemic and all the problems we've had and bad economy? And do you want division instead of unity, which, according to the Biden campaign, would continue if Donald Trump is reelected? Well, here is the ad that sort of encapsulates that strategy, again, by the Biden campaign, trying to say, we don't want more bad stuff to continue. We don't want more unity. We need unity. We don't want less unity. We want more unity. Here's the ad. It's called Rising. This was just released by the Biden campaign a couple of days ago. Watch it. Hope over fear, unity over division. Again, it is, and a lot of the imagery of COVID-19 and people with masks and sort of the mess that is out there because of the pandemic. This is Biden trying to say, look at what's happened the past 4 years. We don't want that to continue. Again, classic strategy. The challenger is trying to make this a referendum on the sitting president and on his negatives. The president generally, an incumbent president running, has to climb uphill to make this not a referendum election. Donald Trump, through some of what he's saying in campaign speeches, through also some of his ads, is trying to make this a choice election, a choice between, you have to choose between me and that guy. It's not just about me. Let's get to some more of your live chat. Science fiction over science fiction. The comments are coming in really quickly here. It's just great. Let's see. Trump has, I prefer Biden's more calm ones, though. Political ads are weird. I agree. Says Larry Slipstream, how about keeping to factual comments for Trump instead of ludicrous comments? By the way, thanks to Pablo, Peter, Mark, everybody who's been part of this and your comments here. Let's see. He has had 2 brain aneurysms. Google it. Okay. I have previous, one person writes, Brandy writes, I had precisely 1 week to tell my joke, vote Trident, vote Bump. Brandy, I'm sorry, I don't get that one. You guys should see the Trump ads on Univision. Those are the ones in Spanish. I gotcha. Here's Boot Hair, who says, wall is being built. He lets states who have some sovereignty handle it. My state killed the economy. Again, that gets to the Trump strategy of saying, look, it's not the federal government's responsibility for the pandemic. It's the state's responsibility for the pandemic. They blew it. Blame them. Trump has actually women saying he assaulted them. I believe that's up to 26. Says, I am avid. Russia, Trump wins, voters not so much. That's according to COVID 2100. Let's get to some more. You know what this reminds me of is that we are so divided in this country on so many different levels. And it gets back to something that I talked about in sort of our 5 reasons Trump wins, 5 reasons Biden wins. If you believe that the polls are wrong, I mean, there's no agreement anymore, right, about are these polls accurate or not? Well, they were not accurate in 2016, so people who are predisposed to vote for Donald Trump, to support Republicans, are going to say the pollsters are biased, they're wrong, they don't account for people who don't want to say publicly that they support Donald Trump. You can't trust the pollsters. And yet people say, well, no, the pollsters are right because they use science, they use scientific methods in terms of math and algorithms and statistics and all that sort of thing. We should trust the pollsters. The problem that we have is that if nobody trusts the pollsters, then it also follows that that some people are not going to trust the official results, because if you are convinced that the pollsters are wrong, if you're convinced that Donald Trump has more support because of the silent majority out there, what happens on election night when the results come in and it suggests that Joe Biden has won this? You then believe, well, Donald Trump said that we have all these absentee ballots and mail-in ballots and fraud, therefore the Democrats only won because of fraud. If Donald Trump wins, the Democrats will say, wait a second, it's impossible for Donald Trump to have won because look at all those polls. Clearly, Donald Trump must have called Russia or done something to hack the election machines on election day to skew the results just enough so that he can get the votes he needs to win. I mean, we're in this sort of weird environment now where there is no trust in institutions. There's nothing that any of us can agree on. Imperfect Beaver, love you, hun. Somebody says investment, imperfect, thank you. Biden will raise taxes and add regulations that will strangle the economy. Tech support Larry, you get right to the choice strategy. Republicans want to make this about a choice. Biden is going to raise taxes. His campaign says it will be on people who make more than $400,000. You will lose money if Biden is elected. Well, we've actually lost money over the last, certainly over the last year, and we've lost money the last couple of days because of what's been going on in the pandemic. So in terms of losing money, look, for anybody who's out of a job, and there are, 50 million people who have been on unemployment benefits, I think that's a tough argument to say, well, you're going to be even worse if Joe Biden is elected. A lot of people are suffering right now and are thinking, you know what, I'm going to hold the guy who's in office accountable. Biden will enable Iran. Yes, Biden has suggested, I don't know about enabling is the right word, but Biden has said that he would go back into the nuclear deal with Iran. Donald Trump, of course, has stayed out of it. Let's go. Rock On says imperfect. Thanks, Rock On. Bernie. You know what? We talked about the enthusiasm for Joe Biden not being as strong as it was for Donald Trump. I have a feeling that the number would be reversed, that there would be a lot of enthusiasm if Bernie Sanders had been the nominee. His supporters are extremely passionate, and I think you would have had, therefore, a lot of people voting not only because they love the Democratic candidate and his policies, also because they don't like Donald Trump. But the Democratic Party decided, no, we're going to go with a guy who's a little bit more of a centrist, more of an establishment, who perhaps doesn't have sort of the extremes that might be exploited by the right. Socialism, Medicare for all, raising the minimum wage, Green New Deal, goes on and on, even whether you support them or think they're good policies or not. The theory in the Democratic Party was that Bernie Sanders would perhaps cost the party in some of the down ballot races in the more purple states. So the party decided we're going to unite behind Joe Biden and take our chances. And I think there are a lot of Democrats tonight who are thinking, Joe Biden doesn't excite me. But you know what? We've got a lead in all these different Senate races, which suggests that we may end up with control of the Senate with 54, 55 seats. Would that have happened if Bernie Sanders had been the Democratic nominee? Maybe. Lost my old account. What has Trump actually done? Well, the economy was actually going pretty well until the pandemic. Donald Trump has ended regulations, has given, I guess you could say, more freedom to businesses. Is that the best policy for us? I mean, that's up for debate. Failed leadership, says Ignition Now. Brett Walker, the idea that Biden would wreck the economy doesn't make sense when Obama left his term with a booming economy. Well, that's true. Joe Biden has experience of restarting a failed economy, as was happening at the end of the George W. Bush administration when we had, of course, the bank bailouts and the implosion on Wall Street and the housing market and housing finance market. So Joe Biden, one of the things that you'll hear Democrats say is Joe Biden has been there. Donald Trump uses it against him to say, well, 47 years he's been there and we need an outsider like Donald Trump. But the argument is if you're looking for somebody who's actually been in the room making some of these tough decisions about the economy, about war and peace, about policies, about negotiations, Joe Biden certainly has that experience. Okay, a couple more questions, and this has gone 415 live chats. Great. So great that so many of you have been part of this. I hope you've enjoyed the 5 reasons Donald Trump will win, 5 reasons Joe Biden will win. Some people are saying, well, what do you think? And I get back to what I said a week ago, and that I do think that this election will be called on election night in the 11 o'clock hour for Joe Biden. I don't think this will be a close race. I think some states will be close, but I think in terms of the Electoral College, Donald Trump's needle that he has to thread is so minuscule and so narrow that I just, to me, I think it's possible that Joe Biden wins Florida. I think he's certainly going to win Wisconsin, probably going to win Michigan. There's a decent chance he wins Pennsylvania. I think there's also a decent chance that he wins all 4 Midwestern states, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin, which sort of turns us into a landslide. But I also think there's a decent chance Donald Trump wins Pennsylvania. And if he wins Pennsylvania, I think whoever wins Pennsylvania is going to win Ohio. So under that scenario, again, getting back to our map, if Joe Biden wins Wisconsin, He wins Michigan, then he needs a pickup of North Carolina, where he's ahead slightly, Arizona, where he's ahead slightly. And oh, by the way, regarding the U.S. Southwest, for all the polls that were wrong about the states in the industrial Midwest 4 years ago, they were also wrong about some of the southwestern states, but they were wrong in terms of Hillary Clinton outperformed the polls. So the theory is that the pollsters, in addition to not, finding the less educated voters in the Midwest who supported Donald Trump, that the pollsters didn't account for the high turnout among Hispanic Latino voters 4 years ago. If that's the case again, then you presume that Hillary Clinton, who barely lost Arizona, Joe Biden's in a better polling position in Arizona now than Hillary Clinton was, and he's in a better position in New Mexico and Colorado. So the theory is, well, maybe then Joe Biden picks up a state like Arizona. Okay, Trump ain't winning. Says, let's see, a couple of people going back and forth with some fights here on the live chats. So let's wait. No 545 kids without parents. Yes. Obviously, there is the anger that a lot of people feel over the Trump administration's policy of separating families at the U.S.-Mexico border. And again, there was a report 2 weeks ago that the Trump administration acknowledged, I believe to the New York Times, that the Trump administration cannot find 545 parents of children who were separated. And some of these children were so young that they don't remember their parents because they were too young the last time they saw them. One more time, let's put up the Electoral College map from 2016. This is a map that all of you are going to see a lot of over the next 4 or 5 days, and certainly a lot on Tuesday night. This is what happened in 2016. Clinton 232, the state's in blue. Donald Trump 306, the state's in red. The theory of the race for the Democrats is that Biden picks up at least 2 of the 4 Midwestern states that Donald Trump won 4 years ago: Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. Based on the polling trends, my gut tells me that Donald Trump probably wins Pennsylvania, maybe even Ohio, but Joe Biden wins Michigan and Wisconsin, and then Joe Biden clinches the election, gets over 270 by either picking up Arizona or North Carolina or Florida, again, states where he has a slight lead. Will all 3 polls, which show Joe Biden slightly ahead in each state, be wrong? It's possible. And that's why you hear the pollsters say there is a 10 to 15% chance that Donald Trump actually does thread the needle and wins the election. The magic number is 270. I hope you all have enjoyed taking a look at historical precedent and some of the data sets that are out there that, look, you can make the argument. We stuck to just 5 reasons why Joe Biden wins and 5 reasons why Donald Trump wins. You could come up with 50 based on the data, based on historical precedent. I try to pick the ones that were most interesting to me and also the ones that seemed most interesting in terms of Donald Trump and what I thought were his best arguments in terms of the data that I've seen out there as to why Donald Trump might pull this off. We will see. And by the way, one more bit of news. 85 million Americans have now voted in this election. Perhaps sometime tomorrow or Saturday, analysts are expecting that the total number of people who voted early will surpass the total number of votes that were cast early and on election day and by absentee ballot 4 years ago. How about that? We're going to have turnout, it looks like, which is far heavier, far stronger than it was 2016. You could argue that that's because we're even more divided and more passionate than ever, but by all accounts, both sides agree this is one of the most important elections in our lifetime. A lot at stake, and the differences between the president, between Joe Biden, between their policies could not be any more stark. Well, that'll do it. On behalf of everybody who's been with us at HAPS TV, Quick Hits News, remember you can always subscribe to our Quick Hits News show. It comes out each day at 5 o'clock. Go to YouTube, subscribe, ring the bell. You'll have the videos delivered to your inbox. It's a 15-minute show where we go through the top U.S. and international news stories with a panel of 4 or 5 journalists, some network news correspondents that you would recognize. It's a great recitation, nonpartisan, of the day's top stories from reporters who know this stuff. So go to our YouTube page, go to quickhitsnews.com, subscribe. You'll love the videos. And we're going to keep doing some of these live broadcasts as well through HAPS and also through Quick Hits News at night. 5 more days until the election, and we are going to be live on election night, so look for that. By the way, you haven't, go talk to your dog, says COVID-2100. Oh, I guess the fight is continuing. The fight is continuing in our live chats, and that's how it goes sometimes. I voted for Kanye, says 1. All right. Talking about Kanye, it's time to end this. I'm David Schuster on behalf of everybody at HAPS and Quick Hits News. Thanks for joining us.